Welcome, family and friends, to the new Total Faith Show with your host, Gene Groove Allen. You know me, I'm getting those digits. This is the place where everyone has a story, and we hear their journey right here. Now, today, we have a real, very, very special guest. I'm humbled, I'm honored. I want to start the show with a quote from my guest. He states that, let your spirituality be your reality. Now, I want you to let that marinate for a minute as I introduce our guest. He is a learned scholar. In his early 20s, he became an Imam, working with Ella Collins, the sister of the late dynamic Malcolm X. He's a Pan-African activist, a scholar, speaker, and a Yoruba priest. Now, you want to hear about that. He will teach us, he's going to guide us, he's going to give us food for thought. My guest today in the house, Dr. James Small. Sir,
Yes,
how
thank you, my
are,
brother.
it is an honor, a pleasure. There are so many facets. You know, I did reading, a lot of reading. You have done so many things in your lifetime and continue to do for the betterment of our communities. I want to start in the beginning. I want to go way back. I want to talk about your childhood and tell us about your growing up, but more importantly, I know that you were raised with a sense of self. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was born and raised on a plantation in Georgetown, South Carolina. It's called Arcadia Plantation. It was actually a combination of 7 plantations that were slave plantations that would come together. And the Vanderbilt family, the grandfather of the Vanderbilt, a guy named Isaac E. Emerson, bought the 7, combined them into one on the Waccamaw River outside of Georgetown. But his son, his grandson, George Vanderbilt, who had a brother named Alfred Vanderbilt, they took over, but George took all this land.
Gotcha.
It's actually 42 miles of plantation.
42 of plantations.
Of rice plantations. The rice still grow, except they grow wild and the birds eat them, and then people go hunt the birds because they come to the rice field. But I literally grew up in an African village on this plantations. Our people are Gullah Geechee speaking people, and you know, Gullah Geechee is simply our African Creole.
Yes.
We speak English vocabulary with an African grammar foundation. That's why we sound different. And everybody says, oh, they're speaking bad English. African Americans, that Gullah Geechee culture spreads across the South. And so we lived here for generations, but we still speak different.
Now you said you were raised in the village.
Yeah.
You know, now from, and I hate to be stupid, so to speak, but you know, the stories we see on TV. So even though they were slaves, they were still holding on to their African roots.
Oh yeah, that was the key to our survival. My grandmother was what you call a root lady, an African priestess, right, and a healer. So everybody came to her, including rich white people. They'll show up that night and knock on their back door just as quick as a black person would.
Wow.
And the white folks would always call it a snake bite, meaning an ailment that Western medicine can't cure. So they had to use African herbal medicine, which was my grandma.
Wow.
They call her Miss Pigeon. Everybody know Miss Pigeon. Even young kids know Miss Pigeon, even though she's an ancestor now. But her father came from Uganda, and her mother came from Sierra Leone. She was the first to be born here, she and her siblings.
So it wasn't that misplaced versus generation. So when you were born,
I was the 3rd generation.
Wow.
My mom was the 1st generation, and I'm the 3rd generation. But the African practices still went on in that village. Everybody was family. I have a cousin, 2 of them, and we all lived in the same house, 42 kids.
42?
In a 10-room house. Because my uncles was there with their kids. My mom had kids, and Mom had 12 kids. So I didn't know they weren't my brothers. I was an adult before I realized these are not my blood brothers. They're my cousins.
Wow.
But we weren't raised like cousins. We were just raised as brothers and sisters.
Family.
And we still function like that today. He's almost 90. He's still my big brother. He thinks I got a headache, he calls. I have another big brother, he's out in California. He's 80, just turned 84. When I had a knee replacement 4 months ago.
Okay.
This man called me every day at 12 noon to check on his
check
brother.
on you.
When I was in the Navy, he wrote me every month to make sure I was getting
We're
a
going to
letter
talk
from
about
home,
your Navy time, because that to me is interesting.
yeah.
How important was sense of self? Because that to me
That was
stood
the
out.
key to everything. I first heard the word Africa from my grandmother. You know, so I can remember the phrase, but I asked Mama, where we from? I thought she was going to say, we be from slavery. And she says, oh, to tell me, boy, my past say we be from Africa. He a Tutsi man, he was. And he was about 7 foot some change. So, but with Mama practicing the medicine and the ritual all the time, and even the needle that Papa, and we lived on the river on one side, the ocean on the other. It was a peninsula. And the very needle they used to sew the fishing nets is still used in West Africa till this day. So they brought Africa in their minds, in their genes, in their head, in their memories. And what they could hide and keep, that's what kept them. Even the black church is an African church. It's not a European church.
Yes.
It looks like a European church if you don't know you're African. But if you know African culture and African history, I can go on any given Sunday, go to a white Baptist church or Methodist church, and then come to a black Baptist church and Methodist church, and I'm in a foreign country in each move.
In each move.
There's completely two different things going on there.
Wow.
And you ask yourself why. So we shout in church. That's African dancing. Those are the traditional dance steps we brought from Africa, from our village, from our family. We call it shouting, right? We create a spiritual that's a call and response.
Yep.
That's typical music patterns in Africa. That's based on the polyrhythmic movements of the African drum and the African dance.
I love that.
No,
We're going to go to break in a minute, but
Yeah.
when we come back, I want to learn more about that and more about how you think the almost separation from knowledge of self to modern African Americans, because you're talking about things that we should know and we don't.
Right.
Just because.
Right.
We'll be back. We're coming back. This is Food for Thought. I want you to stay right there. This is so important. This is about us. This is about our people. It's about our community. Don't you go anywhere. The new Total Faith Show. We'll be right back.
Are you behind on your mortgage? Is the bank threatening to take your home? Is your house underwater because you owe more than it's worth? Are you considering trying to get a loan modification on your own? Did you know that less than 5% of people who tried on their own actually got a modification? At the Mortgage Modification Helpline, we know the rules and regulations banks don't want you to know about. And we've helped thousands of people stay in their homes. Are you struggling to keep up? Are you past due on your mortgage? If so, we can help. It doesn't matter if you have bad credit, been turned down, or if you're currently getting the runaround from your lender. The call and consultation is free, and it only takes a few minutes to find out if we can help. So call the Mortgage Modification Helpline today, and let's get your loan modified into one you can afford.
Please call 800-650-2047. That is 800-650-2047.
We are back with my guest, Dr. James Small. Before we went to break, you were really getting into some of the things that you knew, raised, being sense of self, that obviously, and I'll be honest with you, I hate to say it, but a lot of modern day African Americans don't even have a clue of why and what.
Yeah.
Can you go into that?
Modern day African Americans are as African as anybody on the continent, in the Caribbean, Central South America. Here's what's missing.
What's missing?
The knowledge of African history before this time.
Yeah.
So we are not able to see the mirror. See, you've got to be able to look in the mirror. History is the mirror.
Okay.
You can look in the mirror and you go like, what they're wearing in the mirror is what I'm wearing standing here. So the mirror, me, yeah. So, and I'll show you some example.
Talk to me.
When I first got to Ghana in '83 with Dr. Leonard Jeffries, the first thing they offered me was jollof rice. And I go, oh, wow, what a beautiful rice, the African rice. And when I got back home, I told my mama, she said, oh, yeah, we call it red rice. I said, you know what this is? She said, I didn't know the word jollof, but I know my mother called the rice they brought from home red rice.
Wow.
Then I realized the red rice I was eating all my life was jollof rice. We didn't have the palm oil to make it yellowish brown. So we used tomato sauce and made it reddish brown.
Reddish brown.
But it's our jollof rice.
Same thing.
And so we kept our jollof rice. I said, wow.
Wow.
Really? In the church, everybody in that village, when we got 13, we were rounded up, boys and girls.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to go to the church before the deacons and the deaconess. And then we had to pick one to be like a godfather. And the girls pick a church mother, and we pick the church father. Can't be your family members. I remember my church father was Deacon Sam Keith. That's the African uncle system.
Okay. Gotcha.
Because my mother's brother has more authority over my mother's children, boy children, than my mother's husband do in the African tradition. So now that we reached 13, we had to be initiated in that tradition.
Okay.
So we had to pick an uncle, even though we got blood uncles.
Yes.
This was the symbolically keeping with the African tradition. You picked the church father, which was your African uncle, who now takes more responsibility on you than your
raising
father,
of
the boy child.
Okay.
And then the girls had to pick a church mother, who was their auntie.
Wow.
And then we went through training and catechisms and
What type of training? Talk to me about the training.
Okay. We had to do things, whatever the elders were doing, like the women taught the girls how to cornrow, the women taught the girls how to do the herbal stuff that you gathered. They all did that. We were farmers and fishermen, so the women taught the girls farming and how to farm. The men taught us fishing. We had wagons and mules back in my day, right? Hitching up a team of mules to a wagon was a chore. You had to learn that.
And how old were you then?
I was 13.
13.
So
that's a
you
job.
had to learn how to hook up the mules, and it was a 2-mule wagon.
Man.
Or go to pasture and get that mule and learn how to get him without it running from you, because the mule sees it's going to run. So there was a way, there's a sound, little hissing sound you made, and you stretch your hand out to bring him to you, and then you put the bridle on.
Did it work?
Oh, it worked once you got it. And so
How long did it take you to get it?
a while. I mean, but we played with the mules and the cows and ride them to past stuff in the morning. So that was the lifestyle. But this process ended with something we called the morning bench. After a year, everybody in that group, boys and girls who had been 13 that year, we went to the morning bench, meaning you went to church and you got on your knees. You had 7 days. You get on your knees, you kept your eyes closed, and you pray to God to give you the Holy Ghost. Now, in the Yoruba tradition, it's called being possessed by the divine. So it's the same African possession, but there we call it the Holy Ghost. In Africa, we call it being possessed by the gods. And so each family sang their own song over their children. I still remember mine. My family sang this.
They created their own songs that
they sang over you
family.
to get you infused with the Spirit. And mine was, save me, Lord, save my soul from the burning hell, oh, save me. And this is your family now.
And everybody's singing.
Over you, and you down on the bench just praying, God, please let me get it. And then you get possessed. You don't remember a lot of it in the beginning until somebody's sitting you down on the bench somewhere. Yeah, you get possessed. And so I didn't know the relationship to Africa until I became a Yoruba priest, and I went through the same ceremony. Except I'm not on my knee, I'm blindfolded, and I'm laying on the ground in a hut in the forest. But it's the same process.
Same process.
And I had to get possessed. Wow. And so for me, it was Oya and Chango, you know. So I was like, oh my God, I already did this. I did this when I was a 13-year-old kid.
Man.
So
and how old were you when you did it again as a priest?
As a Yoruba priest, I think I was in my early 40s. Early 40s. I'm like 76 now, so it was about 30-something years ago now.
Wow.
That we did this. But the point is to see that the system, the gathering us at 13.
Yep.
If you read Jomo Kenyatta's book, Facing Mount Kenya, the whole process is in there. It's called the age grade ceremony. All African. They're getting possessed in order to become a part of the adult community.
Yes.
All African.
And this is all about
sense
of self.
Yes. And so you're giving that sense of self. And the church is the core center of the African village. You see, This is where we could go and do African and nobody mess with us. When we out in the field, we out working, we got to pretend. But when we got in the church, we can do Africa. And that was our sanctuary. The only sanctuary we were allowed, and nobody could bother us. So much of Africa is retained in the black church, and we don't even know it's there because we don't know the history and culture of Africa, so we can't see ourselves in that mirror. But once you start learning African culture, you're like, Mama did that, Papa said that, Daddy said this. 'Cause it's all there. It's hidden in the church in plain sight. You just don't know what's hidden there. Let me just give you one other that.
Yeah, because you said, the church is being that sanctuary, you being embedded so deeply in the church, but then, I don't want to call it disenfranchised, but kind of like this was not the way. And I don't want you to go deep into it.
No, yeah, well, what happened after a while of being cut off from a flow of intergenerational transmission of African fresh knowledge,
Okay.
then you lose the body of knowledge. You don't see what grandma hid under the bench. You don't see what grandpa put in the pulpit. You don't see what auntie painted on the wall. Because you don't know the reflection.
Because you're so far away from
Right. You've been cut off generation after generation. If you now go back and study history, you go like, oh, on New Year's night, no one comes in our house until after a woman can walk in first after New Year's. It's an African thing.
Okay, hold on. So we're getting ready to go to break. Don't you go and don't, because I want to start talking about those nuances, those pieces that we don't even have a clue about.
Right.
Listen, we're going to come back. I told you, this is a lot of food to marinate, a lot of food to grow on. Stay with us. This is really important. We'll be right back with my guest, Dr. Smalls.
With funeral costs averaging over $10,000 and expected to be over $30,000 in 20 years, how can seniors pay for their funeral and not leave this debt to their families? Senior Life Insurance Company offers state-regulated life insurance plans to help cover your final expenses. Up to $30,000 in tax-free money. With plans around $12 a month, covering your final expenses has never been more affordable. This low rate is also locked in for life, and your coverage amount will never decrease. You also cannot be turned down for any health reason. You could qualify for full coverage from day one even if you have many common health issues like diabetes, high blood pressure, or arthritis. This is all done with no medical exam. Senior Life is now enrolling people for this important benefit, so call the number for free information. Don't miss this opportunity for free information on your available benefits. Make the free call now.
Are you behind on your mortgage? Is the bank threatening to take your home? Are you considering trying to get a loan modification on your own? Did you know that less than 5% of people who tried on their own actually got a modification? At the Mortgage Modification Helpline, we know the rules and regulations banks don't want you to know about, and we've helped thousands of people stay in their homes. So call the Mortgage Modification Helpline today.
Please call 800-650-2047.
We're back. Did you think about what we talked about? We were marinating. There's a lot of great thoughts. So we're still here with Dr. James Small. Now, when we went to break, you were talking about some of those traditions that we're not even aware of.
Talking about New Year's.
Yeah.
The New Year's in the African household in Georgia, Wilmington, North Carolina, South Carolina, Charleston, Georgia, and even in other spaces, on New Year's, we had a dish. It was called hop and John. Now, people today is using black-eyed peas, but we didn't use black-eyed peas.
Wow.
And people are making up myth. We don't have to make myth because we got truth. We use something called cow peas.
Cow peas.
It was a very dark brown peas, and it made the rice look almost black.
Wow.
So you cooked it with the rice. It was
Yes.
a peas and rice pot together. And this was Hop and John. And so Hop and John is referring to mythical characters out of Africa, like one of them being the spider out of Ghana, you know. And we that spider was the wisdom carrier.
Yes.
You know, so when the year's beginning, everything is anew. Remember, you're leaving everything else behind you, and you're going anew. So you have to be led by Hop and John. That's the food you're going to eat that night. That dark rice, that black rice, and that black bean called cow peas, not black-eyed peas. Black-eyed peas is a different kind of peas. So I'm a farmer, so I
So you know.
that, right?
So and it seems like so.
But let me tell you another piece to that. No one allowed a woman to walk through the door after midnight until a man walked through the door.
Why was that?
Because the woman is the power. That's her household. But the man is the authority. She gives that authority to him to go outside of that household and bring whatever is necessary back in that household to keep that family. That's a very African thing, all the way back to ancient Egypt.
Would you say that, and once again, like we are so, the modern African American is so displaced.
Yeah, not just the modern African American, in the Caribbean and Africa itself. Because under colonialism and slavery, the one thing they did was to cut us off from our education and force us to take their education, which had no respect for our human beingness. See, when you don't have a respect for the human beingness of another person, then you don't tell their story. It is in telling their story with their images and information, because if you control the images, you control the mind. So if you don't tell their story with their images, then you create a negatively socialized being that you want to allow to fit in your world, but you no longer have the knowledge to fit in or build its own world.
Man, that's now. If you didn't hear what he just said, that's
Yeah, but the retentions are there.
Yeah.
The retentions are there. When you go to South Carolina, to Charleston, and you drive down Highway 17, you see all those people side of the road weaving baskets. Well, they were weaving those baskets since they came from Africa, but this is what they call sweetgrass, you know, and they still do it today. But when I was little, I didn't know those were African baskets.
No.
I didn't know the stories told in the different weaving patterns were African stories. But I remember when we were little kids, my mama, we call her Ning, you know, and my big sister, who's an ancestor, and I used to call her Ning Ning, and we cut her short and we call her Ning. No one called her Miss Lucille except strangers, but the children, we all call her Ning. And she would tell us stories before we go to bed every night. And the stories was all about this trickster. In the Yoruba, the trickster is called Legba.
Okay.
That's this represented by this black and red bead, right? This bead is a whole school of thought, a whole university when you break it down. And so the trickster, we call him Burr Rabbit. He was always playing some game on somebody. And so we would get all these Burr Rabbit's stories at night. And the one I remember most was the one about greed. There was the candy tree. And everybody could go in and get a little bit of candy, but you're supposed to get only the amount of candy the elder told you to get. Well, Burr Rabbit thought he was going to get slick, and he's going to go in and fill all of his pockets with candy, but only come out with a certain amount in his hands. And then he said, let me fill my belly, so I got plenty of candy. And he did all of this. So when the elders would call and say, it's time to come out of the candy tree, it's time to go to bed, he couldn't get out because his belly was too big. So the story was like, you know, greed can put you in a bad situation.
Wow, Burr Rabbit.
Yeah, Burr Rabbit. But our Burr Rabbit is equal to Ishu Legba in the Yoruba and Anansi in the Akan. The Akan's in Ghana, Ivory Coast.
And wouldn't even that, if you know, Burr Rabbit was more of a cartoon character.
It would be wonderful if we had a cartoon character of this young rabbit who was always playing tricks, but all of his tricks had a wisdom theme to it.
But the wisdom theme has been lost.
Yes, it's been lost because we no longer tell the stories of Barabbas, you know, and the others. Even looking at John Henry, you know, the railroad man. They took Johnny Appleseed from us, but Johnny Appleseed was a black thing before it became a white thing in white literature in America. So when we start studying history, you see these characters in Africa. Then you go, oh, we played like that when we were young. There was another game we played where we hit a switch, a piece of branch, and whoever finds that branch would have to chase the rest of us, and whoever he spot with the branch, that person would be next. And so part of the thing was colors, and I forgot the whole game, but we had to call different colors before we started running.
Okay.
And it was only when somebody called the color red would we run and be frightened and try to hide.
Okay.
And I find when I got to Ghana, the color red was death. You know, so we were playing this game, employing the tools of a culture that we could no longer relate to. So when I started learning, red and black is the funeral robe, but the immediate family were all red, you know. And so when somebody said red, everybody know you got to run and hide and get away. And so a lot of the little games we played had African wisdom instruments in them.
You know, Doctor, you know, there is so much more that I want to talk about with you. So much, you have such a incredible past. Would you mind coming back?
Oh, I'd love to.
You know, I want to be able to, because there's so many things I still want to talk about. Your college journey, you're working with the Minister Malcolm X and his family, your trip to Mecca. You know, I want to please come back.
Oh, absolutely.
This is what we're going to do. I want you to know, we're coming back with Dr. Small. He's going to tell us more about his incredible journey, about his being a Yoruba priest, his work with Malcolm X's sister, his religion beliefs and what he's doing now. But more importantly, we're going to talk about bridging that gap. African Americans, we're displaced, we know it. We're going to try to find some ways to find our way. So please, remember, thank you for watching. We'll be back, part 2 with Dr. Small. I'm your host, Gene Groove Allen, the Total Faith Network.